Good morning, Year 10s. So today I'm going to be running through how to draw cumulative frequency graphs, because that's going to be one of your activities for your worksheet today, and then also how to turn that into box plots. So that's going to be the first part of today's lesson. But after that, you're going to do interpretation and comparison between two pieces of data, because that's really a really easy skill to be able to do, and it's very useful for everything, not just what we're going to be doing in lesson, but in terms of doing with in terms of understanding data in social media and be able to bring on your own conclusions about information instead of having to trust those other sources. So first off, we're going to talk about a cumulative frequency graph. So I want to be very important here that a lot of students don't understand cumulative. Now, a big point behind this is the fact that cumulative actually comes from the word accumulate. Okay, so to accumulate data. Now, if we keep this in mind, this is very useful because then accumulate means to gather. So what we're really doing when we're doing a cumulative frequency curve or graph is we're accumulating the frequencies as you go up. So if I'm going to think about it, actually, what we have is for distance up to 2 kilometers, there is 12 people. Now, that's all well and good for the first one, but once we go to the next one here, what we really want is what we're saying here is the fact that we're going up to, so all the way up to 4 kilometers, there's actually going to be 12 plus 16, which is going to be 28 people. So that's why cumulative frequency is called cumulative. It's the accumulating frequency as we're going up. So up to all the way up to 6 is going to be 12 plus 16, which is 28 plus 9, which is 37. Up to 8 from the start is just going to be 45. So I get that from 12 plus 16 plus 9, which is 37. Adding on 8 gives me 45. And then we got to add on another 5 more to get to 50. So that's the first thing we need to do is we need to accumulate our frequencies in a table format. Now, sometimes in a test, it won't have an extra column for you like it does here. So what you'd have to do is actually turn around and make your own column. But we're going to start doing this. So first thing you're going to notice is the fact that I have a blank graph. Now, your graphs that you're going to be doing actually a little bit nicer because I've tried to put some points to help you, but you should get used to drawing your own axis. So we'll have a look here. We have 0 through to 10 as my x-axis, which is going to be distance. So my x-axis is going to be distance in kilometers. And I've got 0. So all I do is I start thinking, can I go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? Okay, that means I can make this box is going to be 1. This is going to be 2. This is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And honestly, I usually just do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 because that's what I need for my graph. Now my y-axis is going to be my cumulative frequency. Now I can't write sideways on this, so I'm just going to write CF. All right, so I'm just going to put CF here, cumulative frequency. All right. Now, I need to go up to 50. So let's have a look. 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, which means I can make every single one box is going to be 1. 1, I can only 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. All right. Notice that my scale is all even. So 10 is always 10 on my y-axis and 1 distance here. So 5 boxes is always 1 on my x-axis. All right, let's go about plotting our cumulative frequency graph. Once you have your axis, which you should be able to do by now, I'm going to have a look here. So what I said was up to 2, it's 12 people to have a cumulative frequency of 12. So that means we're going to plot the 2 on the x-axis and 12 on the y. Now take your time when you're plotting this. I'm telling you right now, if you are more than one of these squares away on a test, you will lose a whole mark. So if you spend all the time and one of them's out, don't think it's good enough, you will lose a mark. So let's have a look at this next one. So up to 4, we have 28. This is why we always do it on the upper bound when we do community frequency, because it's up to 4, there's 28 results. So up to 4, there's 28 results. Up to 6, we've got 37. Up to 8, we've got 45. And up to 10, we have 50. Right, so there's our cumulative frequency graph. Now I'm going to change the, oh no, I'll leave it in black at the moment. We need to draw it. Now we don't have any results from the start, but we can draw it from 0 because we know our lowest value would be 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this in. And we need to make sure, now this is, I might have to do this a couple of times. Should be a curve. Okay, let's try that last bit again, make that a little bit nicer. All right. Now, in GCSE, if you connected them with a straight line, you'd still get the mark. Unlike a quadratic graph, this would be okay. But what you should have is a curve. Done. There's a 3-mark question done. You've drawn a cumulative frequency graph. Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to straight take this directly into our box plot in a moment. But I want you to right now, on the model question in front of you, I want you to do exactly what I've done. Try doing it by yourself, but leave this paused up on the screen. Okay, now before I do anything, I'm going to start the next step. Now I'm going to talk about a box plot. Now you should have done box plots before, but I'm going to put one in the corner just so we know. In a box plot, we're going to have something that looks like this. And also there's 5 pieces of information. So this point here is your minimum, and this is your maximum. Okay. Now, this point in the middle would be the middle point of your data, also known as the median. And then we've got our lower quartile, which is our 25%, where our 25% of the data is, and our upper quartile here, which is my upper quarter, which is 75% of the results. The 75th percent results, it's there. So we're going to draw this. You should have done this before. If you're not, can I get the teacher to make sure that, or make sure you've copied this down into your book, because we're going to be doing this. And this is how you compare data. So cumulative frequency graphs are quite misleading by themselves, but if you turn them into a box plot, they're much easier to make comparisons with. So underneath your graphs, you'll have this here, and we're going to use exactly the same axis for distance, and we're going to draw our cumulative frequency graph. Now I'm just going to make this a little bit thicker, and we'll go red. So what we want is we can start with the minimum. Now the minimum result here is going to be 0. Okay, so because our minimum, because it's the minimum possible result we had, so we're just going to put a line there. Our maximum is 50. All right, so we've started our 2 points. Next one, let's start with our average, also known as our median. So where is our median located? So if we have 50 pieces of data, our median is exactly halfway, which is at 25. Because it's half, that's going to be the median. Okay, so I'm going to read across from there, and using your own graph, when you hit that, you're going to go down. So you'll notice that actually I'll have 3.6 as my median here. Now this is why I've drawn it underneath. Then you can go straight down and you can draw 3.6 on your box plot. All right. Now, that is your median. Can I get you to make sure you've drawn that in now? Okay. Now, if your median is located at 25, so that's halfway, a quarter is going to be 12.5, which would be right here. So this will be our lower quarter, so 25%, okay, which is at 12.5 because that's a quarter of 50. So we read across from there and we go straight down. So our lower quarter is 2, right? And my upper quarter is the opposite. It's 20, it's going to be 35%. Or you can add these together, which would be 37.5, which is our top quarter. And you'll notice this is evenly spread out now. So this is at 37.5. That's going to be our upper quartile, which is our 75% mark. Hit your graph, go straight down. So my upper quarter is 6. Once I've done that, I would draw in my box for between my two quartiles. We're going to talk about some interpretation. Okay. So that's it. That's how we can turn some data you have into a cumulative frequency graph and using that to make a box plot. So what I want you to do now is let's label these again. Let's label these a bit better. So we've got our minimum, our maximum. Now we don't use these when we're comparing data in a box plot because you can have one person get a maximum and it's going to skew the data. It's going to make it look like you have really high results. You have median in the middle. And if you remember, the median is a term for an average. Okay, so your average result of this data is 3.6. Keep that in mind because you're going to use that later in the lesson. And the last thing you have is your lower quartile here and your upper quartile. Now that's very useful because how big this box is represents your interquartile range. Okay, the range between the quartiles. Okay, so just like your maximum versus minimum, we could do the interquartile range here, which would be 4, which is 6 minus 2, which is 4 kilometers. That's very useful. So we're going to use this later to talk about how it reflects spread or consistency within data. Okay. So your task now is you have a couple of questions there. You have make sure you've done this one here, then complete the next question, which is on exactly the same, drawing a cumulative frequency graph and then a box plot.